winemaker Eriksson. So here we are in South Africa, and we're just outside the little village of Stellenbosch. And we're at the winery here, Vrede, and we're here to meet with the owner, Jean Engelbrecht, and the winemaker Coenie Snyman. And we are here to find out about their way of creating a wine that is strong in body, with fruitiness, and with a long aftertaste. If you were to explain for somebody that never ever tried the Vrede wines about your style of wine, what would you say?
Our focus is on making the best Vrede we can. Because it's fruitless to say I want to make the best wine in the world. It's impossible, because it's all so different. But I want you to experience that when you've tasted Vrede, hopefully that you will like what we do, hopefully that you will remember it. And in wine, if you've remembered a good wine and something that's something special for you and very personal, you will come back to it.
So John, if you first tell me the story about this fantastic vineyard.
Pierre, the property started in 1694, like many other old properties around Stellenbosch. And through the centuries, it had many different owners. We were fortunate in the late 70s. My parents bought the property when it was very run down. And they gradually started restoring it. Within the first year, my father made wine again. After the first year of making wine again at Vrede, he decided that we will only produce red wine here. His vision was that the terroir of the area lend itself to red wines. And we have only made wine from 3 different varietals in the last 40 years. Cabernet, Syrah, and a little bit of Merlot. And I share that vision with him. We still only produce red wine here, and I think it gives us an opportunity to focus. Every year you learn more and more and more about your own terroir and your own vineyards, and you replanting. So it works for us. Myself, our winemaker Coenie, we share that vision.
What in winemaking is so interesting, you think?
I think it's the combination of the environment that you work in, the climate, the vineyards that you deal with, and then taking that to the next step and actually facilitate that process of winemaking.
Now you are the winemaker here at Vrede. Why do you think Vrede is such a specific place to make great wines?
Vrede specifically is actually only got one soil type. So it's a very homogeneous environment. So you work with a very specific soil type. It's not a big property. We're very specialized in Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah, and then we still have a touch of Merlot. And Vrede is a warm spot in Stellenbosch. We don't get the southeasterly winds, we don't get the southwesterly winds. We lower down the mountain. Our soils are very rich soils, so it's very well suited to red, specifically Cabernet and Syrah. And it produces wines with distinction and individual character. The style of wine that we want to produce at Vrede is a reflection of the history of the property, but we also want to focus that it is an internationally relevant wine. So if you compare that to international wines, I would say we're an interesting blend of the old world with the restraint and an interesting blend of the new world with the fruit, with our focus on drinkability.
So Coenie, we got some really fantastic wines here. Please tell me what we got here on the table.
We've got the Vrede estate. It is our core of our business. It's a blend of Cabernet, Syrah and Merlot. And then we've got a single vineyard Syrah, single vineyard Cabernet, and then we've got another blend, the 1694 classification, which is a blend of Syrah and Cabernet. One of the characteristics that's always in a Vrede wine is the darker fruit spectrum, the darker chocolate spectrum. We put a lot of focus on tannin smoothness, And as I said, drinkability for us is very important. And in that first year of 2007, we opened a restaurant, and that completely changed our mindset to a lot more food orientation when we produce wines from the property. The darker fruit spectrums, the brambles, for me on this wine right now, there's a lot of red fruit. The dark chocolate comes through on the palate with a fresh finish and a nice silky tannin. This single vineyard Syrah for me is very dominated by floral characteristics, jasmine, a hint of that dark chocolate is also there, but the most prominent characteristic for me is that jasmine, and then on the palate, rich characteristics of ripe fruit, underlined with a spicy tannin structure, gives that nice long spicy finish. Single vineyard Cabernet, Cassis dominated on the nose, lots of ripe fruit. It's a big wine, big structure. The tannin is prominent, but gives you a fresh feeling, a nice dry, like a soft paper on the finish. The 1694 classification, that is Syrah dominated, so that floral jasmine characteristics when the wine is young is very prominent. When the wine matures a little bit, the Cabernet takes over a lot more and it becomes a lot more Cassis driven. The smoothness of the Shiraz rounds the wine off very nicely, but the structure and the tannin of the Cabernet keeps it tightly together in a very long, nice, smooth tannin finish.
Rust and Vrede being one of the top wines in the world, I would say. Are there different tastes in different countries all over the world?
Because we're not a very big producer, so we cannot alter the style of our wines for every country. But what we try and do is to make a wine that works for us, make the best possible wine we can, and the challenge is to keep the wines that we make vintage after vintage, to make it internationally relevant for the palate. So you're looking for something that is acceptable, but staying true to where it comes from. At Rust and Vrede, being a wine estate, we use only all the fruit comes from the property. And that's one of the things that I think is one of the cornerstones of whatever success we have.
If you were to pinpoint why the top restaurants are serving Rust and Vrede wines, what would you say?
And once again, it comes back to my previous statement that you have to make a wine that is true to where it comes from, but in the same time, to make sure that it is a wine that people, from regardless where they are from, would like to have and enjoy with whatever meal they're having.
Wine pairing is very important for top restaurants in the world. What kind of food is the best pairing for the Rust and Vrede wines?
Wine pairing is important because I think it's traditionally been important. What I've seen in our own restaurant is that the younger generation are far more willing to experiment with wines and the food that they eat, which I think is fantastic. We predominantly, from Rust and Vrede, we think that our wine goes well with meat dishes.
Now you got a fantastic wine estate here. You got a fantastic restaurant on your premises here. Your wines is sold all over the world. It's also one of the top 100 wines in the world year after year. And there are always lots of people coming here to visit and try your wines. Where will you go from now?
You get to a stage where people say, why don't you try something totally new, totally out of the box? I think I'm too conservative for that. You shouldn't fix something if it ain't broke. There's a lot of parts that makes a winery work. It needs time. I have been very fortunate in my lifetime that I had a very good, solid foundation set there by my parents. We try and keep it very simple here. There's many suggestions. People outside on the market say, maybe you should plant a little bit of this kind of varietal and add that and add that. At the end of the day, you're running the risk of becoming very good at a lot of things, but not a master. And I'm not saying we are masters now, but it is our goal to do the best on Rust and Vrede with grapes from Rust and Vrede.
If you were to give an advice to a young person that wants to become a winemaker, what would you say?
Join a place where you can work with the best possible grapes that you can get, and join a place where you believe in the direction where the brand is going.